The elegant hotel lobby gleamed with marble and crystal as Grace Adams stood near the entrance, clutching her modest purse and trying not to look as terrified as she felt. At 29, she was an elementary school teacher, making barely enough to cover rent on her tiny apartment. And she had been set up on a blind date at one of the city's most exclusive hotels. Her friend Lisa had been insistent. His name is Adrian. He's successful, kind, and perfect for you. Just trust me, Grace had agreed reluctantly, assuming they would meet at a coffee shop or casual restaurant. When Lisa had texted the address of the Grandview Hotel, Grace had nearly canceled. But she had borrowed a dress from her roommate, taken the bus across town, and now stood in the lobby feeling completely out of place among the wealthy guests in designer clothes. A man approached, tall, maybe early 30s, wearing an elegant vest and tailored pants that suggested wealth far beyond anything Grace had ever encountered. He was handsome in a way that made her nervous, with the confidence of someone who belonged in spaces like this. "Grace?" he asked with a warm smile. "That's me, Adrian." Her voice came out smaller than intended. "It's nice to finally meet you." "Lisa speaks very highly of you," he gestured toward the hotel's restaurant. "Shall we?" As they walked through the lobby, Grace felt every eye on them more and more accurately. Oh no, on her obvious discomfort in this elegant setting. When they reached the restaurant entrance, she stopped. "I don't belong here," she whispered, unable to continue the pretense. "This is too much. I'm a teacher. I make $35,000 a year. I took the bus here and I borrowed this dress. I can't afford a meal at this restaurant, and I feel completely out of my depth." Adrian looked at her with surprise, then something that might have been respect. "Can we talk for a moment?" "Not in the restaurant, just here." They sat at a quiet bench in the lobby. Adrian turned to face her. "I appreciate your honesty. Can I be honest in return?" Grace nodded, bracing for dismissal. "I'm Adrian Blackwell. I'm CEO of Blackwell Industries. I'm worth about $100 million. I own this hotel, actually." He paused as Grace's eyes widened. "Lisa set us up because she thought we'd connect despite obvious financial differences. She told me you were a teacher who valued authenticity over appearance. She was right, that speech you just gave proved it. You own this hotel?" Grace felt dizzy. "Why would you agree to date a teacher? Because I'm tired of dating women who see my bank account before they see me? Lisa said you were real, that you'd be honest even when honesty was uncomfortable. You just proved that by admitting you feel out of place instead of pretending you belong here." Adrian smiled gently. "Can I suggest something? Let's not eat here. Let's go somewhere you'd actually enjoy, where we can talk like normal people instead of performing wealth."
Oh.
"But you own this hotel. You probably eat here all the time." "Exactly. Which is why I'd love an excuse to go somewhere different. Where would you suggest?" Grace thought of her favorite plaza, small diner near her apartment, where she graded papers over cheap coffee. "There's a diner called Murphy's. Their burgers are amazing, and you can get dinner for under $15. Let's go." Adrian called for his car, a luxury sedan, that made Grace acutely aware again of their differences. But when they arrived at Murphy's diner, something shifted. Away from the elegant hotel, in the modest vinyl booth where Grace felt comfortable, they talked honestly. Adrian told her about the loneliness of wealth, the difficulty of knowing if people valued him or his money. Grace told him about the satisfaction of teaching children, the frustration of inadequate school funding, the reality of living paycheck to paycheck while doing work that mattered. "Do you ever regret it?" Adrian asked. "Choosing teaching when it pays so little. Every time I have to choose between paying bills and buying classroom supplies? Yes, but then a student who was struggling finally understands a concept. Or a kid from a tough home tells me I made them feel safe, and I remember why it matters." Grace paused. "Do you ever regret having money?" "That probably sounds ridiculous." "It's not ridiculous. I regret that it makes authentic connection almost impossible. Everyone wants something: investment, jobs, connections, status. You're the first person in years who admitted discomfort. Instead of performing confidence you don't feel, that's worth more than you know." Over the following months, Adrian and Grace navigated their vast financial gap with deliberate honesty. Adrian learned what financial stress actually looked like, accompanied Grace to schools where she worked, and quietly donated resources to underfunded programs. Grace learned to accept Adrian's help without feeling like charity, to see his wealth as a tool for good rather than a source of shame about her own circumstances. "My colleagues are talking," Grace told Adrian 6 months into their relationship. "The teacher dating the millionaire CEO? They think it's a fairy tale." "What do you think?" Adrian asked. "I think it's complicated and sometimes uncomfortable. It requires constant communication about power dynamics and expectations. But I also think you're the first man who valued my work as much as I do, who saw teaching as meaningful rather than a failure to achieve financial success." Adrian took her hand. "Grace, from the moment you said, 'I don't belong here,' I knew you were extraordinary. Most people fake confidence in situations where they're uncomfortable. You chose honesty. That takes more courage than pretending." 1 year after Grace had whispered, "I don't belong here," in an elegant hotel lobby, Adrian proposed not at the Grandview Hotel, but at Murphy's Diner. In the same vinyl booth where they had their first real conversation. "You told me you didn't belong in my hotel. You were right, you didn't belong in that performance of wealth. You belonged here, in a place that's real and comfortable and honest." Adrian knelt beside the booth with the ring. "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend my life learning from your authenticity? Will you keep teaching me that worth is measured in impact, not income?" Through tears, Grace said yes, but only if you promised to remember that night. That I admitted I didn't belong instead of faking confidence. That you chose honesty over performance. That we built this on acknowledging our differences rather than pretending they don't matter. "I promise," Adrian said. "How could I forget? You said you didn't belong, and taught me that the best relationships are built in places where both people can be real." At their wedding, held at a community center Grace had chosen rather than an expensive venue, Grace's vows made everyone cry. "I told my husband I didn't belong in his world. I was right. But instead of trying to force me into that world, or abandoning his, we built a third world together, one where wealth serves purpose, where honesty matters more than appearance, where a teacher and a CEO can meet as equals. Thank you, Adrian, for not letting me pretend. Thank you for building a world where I actually do belong." If this story reminded you that honesty matters more than performance, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment about when admitting discomfort led to real connection.